Salve, amica, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Vergil's second Eclogue, and this is going to be lines 28 through 34, so it's going to be a little bit longer one, but I have no mythology that I'm going to go into, even though there's a mythological character. Sorry, Phrygius is awake, can't do anything about that. He'll stop when he'll stop. Here is a rubric, everything that we look for as we go through the text, but first, last time in Vergil's second Eclogue. And there we have it. Let's go ahead and get started. O tantum libeat mecum tibi sordida rura atque humilis habitare casas et figere curvos hydrorumque gregem viridi compellere hibisco. Mecum una in silvis imitabere panna canendo pan primum calamus cera conjungere pluris instituit, pan curat ovis oviumque magistros, nec te paeniteat calamo truisse labellum. And there we go. Our very first word that we have here is often used to introduce a vocative, but that's not what we have here. Corydon is not speaking to so muchness. Instead, it's just a exclamation. So we just translate that as is. O tantum with the U in there could be an accusative object, nominative subject, or it could be functioning as an adverb. We need to find the verb to really know, and we have that right here with libeat, at as our ending, with that e in front of it, tells us that this is actually going to be a third singular present tense active and subjunctive. So this is probably going to be one of those verbs that normally appears only in the third person. This one means it pleases or it is agreeable, and it takes the dative as its object, which we find right there with tibi, singular. So it pleases you, or it is agreeable to you, for the dative. And then to do what? We need to have a infinitive with that. Mecum doesn't work. That's just a prepositional phrase. Sordida no rura noun atque. We know that atque has to be joining two things together. The options would be two clauses or two objects of some sort. Since we don't have our infinitive yet, objects makes the most sense, so attaching rura to whatever comes next. Humilis, here we go. Habitare, re, that was a very fake, oh, here we go. I shouldn't do that, I'm sorry. I know what's going on. But anyway, we got our re right there off of the present stem, so present, active, indicative. What is the line? Is it, hello, oh, hey, dog? No. I'm mixing two lines there. It's terrible, terrible voice acting. Too distracting. Sorry. But present active indicative, so it is pleasing, it may be pleasing because of the subjunctive, to you, habito, habitat, to live where? Well, we take accusatives of the place lived. Tantum, unless it's got something neuter or masculine singular. No, none of those work. But rura, this is a rurum, yeah, it's neuter. Rurum, ruri. So then in the plural, we have the a for accusative, plural. Our first object, atque, connecting rura with another accusative. Humilis right there with the is is not the right form necessarily. But right after this, we have casas with the as. That is another accusative, plural, this time feminine. This one works as our second object, connected to rura right there. Sordida with that a, probably modifying rura. Sordida can mean what it looks like, so it can mean sordid. Then we've got dirty, unclean, squalid, all of those different words. And then rura is just the countryside in the plural, so plural for the singular object, if you will. Humilis is still a problem, though. That is is either a nominative singular or a genitive singular. We don't need a nominative singular since this doesn't want a subject. So then genitive could be an option. Genitive owning kasas, and not really rura, but what is it modifying? We got another conjunction right here introducing something different, so humilis can't go any further that direction. There's nothing for it to modify over here. It wouldn't be modifying me, but what it could be saying is it could be in reference to Corydon, just not modifying his pronoun right there. Instead, this would be a substantive, a self-reflecting word. And the way that he's been going back and forth as he's been talking about himself, where he builds himself up, and then he admits his inadequacy of station or whatever else. I think that could fit, because it's been a while since I translated the last one, but as I recall, he just built himself up as this great singer, and then admitted, well, maybe not. And I think this would fit with that. So to dwell in the dirty countryside, so he's admitting the state of the countryside, and the houses, the little huts, really, of a humble one, that being him. Anyway, that's what I think a good option is. The other option is, of course, that we have this Vergilian is accusative plural, which, especially for this passage, is very likely. I know previously I've said this, I'm hesitant to do that, but then when you're going through and the green and yellow doesn't give you any hints, but then checking Perseus, and Perseus says yes and yes and yes again and very likely, well, I'm leaning more and more towards these being accusative plurals. But I'm going to use the genitive. Feel free to disagree with me. I don't know. If you have a professor going through these things, that's probably who you should talk to, these texts. So, genitive, singular, masculine referring to Corydon, or possibly accusative, plural, and then it would be feminine referring to Kasas. So this is then with nothing to modify, an adverb with the exclamation O. Mecum, it's just prepositional phrase, with me, very normal. And we have enough information now to go through and translate this. Oh, how much? No, not so. How much? Oh, so much. Rewrite that S. So much. So there's that written down. I've included both options for humilis there. Et and. Got another infinitive right here with the RE, still operating off of that verb. And this word means to fix, as in to set in place, to... It's not really like pono, to position, but really it's, as I said, it's set in place. It's hard to make the distinction, except that pono isn't used for hunting, but figere can be used to speak about hunting. I think Vergil uses it in Aeneid book 3, is it? It's whichever book of the Aeneid that Aeneas goes with Dido to hunt. I think he uses this verb, at least that's what I recall the dictionary, the lexicon saying. So hunt, I know it means hunt because of the next word that we've got here with os, sorry, present act infinitive. Os for accusative, plural, masculine. Curvos, it's the deer, the stags. So one wouldn't fix a stag on a pedestal, but one would hunt a stag, so like pierce through, to fix a spear into the stag is what we've got here. Of course, as the green and yellow notes, Corydon is saying these things like they're great, they're awesome, because this is what he's used to, but he doesn't know if Alexis is at all interested in hunting, or if Alexis wants to live in the dirty countryside and in huts. No. Anyway, haidorumque, so we've got que is connecting either something else to hunt, but genitive plural, what the haidorum means, that's like little goats, baby goats, kids. One doesn't hunt baby goats, instead that's herd. But this que is probably connecting two different clauses then. But we need to find the verb first. Gregum no, vidity. And here we have compellere re, another present active infinitive. Still with lebeat governing it. And this well, of course, it means what it looks like. So with little goats right there, specifically a grex, a gregem, accusative singular masculine, a herd or flock of little goats. Rather than compel, it means to drive, to lead. Shepherd, probably shouldn't use since there is a verb for shepherding. But we can go ahead and write that down and get back to the rest of these in a moment. Orum is genitive plural. And this word just tells us that Corydon isn't just a shepherd of sheep, but he's also got goats. That's not all that uncommon. We had both sheep and goats, as I think I've probably said multiple times. I don't know what normally is done in the Mediterranean or in the Middle East these days, but yeah, I know with the commercialization of shepherding and goat herding, they've separated them out. But then again, also in sheepfolds, people will sometimes keep goats because goats are smarter than sheep, and if you can lead the goat, the sheep will follow the goat. That's especially the case for when butchering sheep. You'll have the Judas goat there, but that's not for today. A herd of kids, and then wiridi, hibisco, wiridis, wiridi. This is an adjective, and then you've got hibisco, and this is. I suppose this would have to be hibiscus because it's got the O ending. This would be a second conjugation, but it's feminine. Ablative singular feminine, so that's one of those unusual ones. Wiridi with that I can definitely modify that, and it means green. It makes most sense for it to go with that. But what is a hibiscus? Well, possibly related to the hibiscus plant through linguistic rules, but what this thing actually refers to is the mallow, the marshmallow from which we used to get s'mores. Now they're just fake, but it's a long reed that's supple enough that you can weave things with it, and it gets long enough and can be strong enough to be used as a goad, I think it's called. And this would be, of course, ablative of means or instrument. So that ends his first sentence. Yeah, wouldn't it be agreeable to you? I don't know, Corydon. I don't know. Mecum, seen that before, don't need to parse it. Una could be nominative for the feminine or accusative for the neuter. In Sylluis, that is right there tells us from Sylva Sylvae that this is taking the ablative of place where. That's an infinitive, so that doesn't fit. RE, present again. Which then means that libeat is still governing what's going on. So this exclamation mark that the editors put in is not a stop of the full sentence, but merely for flair in English. I don't really see how the exclamation mark is definitively put in there by the text, but whatever. They're the editors. Imitabere, this means what it looks like, as so many do. Imitate. Imitate what? Well, we want to find an accusative object, and we have that with pana. Now, initially when I was looking through this, Perseus, that great and wonderful tool, doesn't always have everything available. So then I went to my copy of Short and found it in there, and this is the accusative singular form of his name. Of course, masculine, from the Greek word pan, not to be confused with the word for all in Greek. Not the same thing. But Pan, the god of satyrs and of shepherds, also the god of terror during war. So to emanate Pan, but then we've got Una there, which is either modifying Pan or it's modifying canendo. But canendo is actually a neuter word, so Una doesn't work with that. Instead, it must be going with pan. So Corydon is not with Una. I don't think he's referring to the particular pan, but instead really to the category of characters. So to a satyr. Now, would it be satyr? Or is fawn? I think faun is the Latin, so we'd be referring to a faun, not a satyr. Same thing, but just different languages there. Canendo is a interesting word. We've got that nd on the stem, and O right there tells us the case it is. Nd is, of course, from gerund, or gerund, however you pronounce it. So this is a dative, singular, neuter, as gerunds all are, and it is future. It's not really passive. It is a participle. It can function as passive, I suppose. But really what we've got going on here is to imitate Pan by the singing of. That's how you get a gerund. You can't say to imitate Pan to sing, or to imitate Pan singing. That's not how the language works. Instead, you still need, not dative, what's wrong with me, ablative. You still need an ablative function, and you can't put yourself in the ablative in a participle because, well, you're the subject, so that doesn't work. Instead, there has to be a workaround, so you have to nounify the verb. And you could do that with an infinitive if you need a direct object or a subject, but if you need any of the other functions of a noun, then you have to put it into a ing form, and that comes through the gerund. Period. Pan, nominative, singular, masculine. And then we get primum. However, there is an alternate reading, and that's with an S, where it's modifying pan. So then it would be pan first pan, but as with m, that would be functioning as a adverb. Then it would be pan first of all, is how I would render it, and that's how I am planning on rendering it. But pan first of all, or first pan, kalamos, here we have another infinitive, but with a new subject. Libeat is no longer governing. Plures, here we go. Instituit, another one of my fake, I've found it. As I said, I'm sorry, I need to stop doing that. Habit, too much habit. So we've got instituo, instituere, institui. So this it can either be a present or it can be a perfect. Does it make sense for Corydon to be speaking of Pan instituting, beginning something right now? Pan, first of all, institutes right now. No. And instead, the perfect makes more sense for Corydon to be speaking about a legend of the past, which I think is in Ovid somewhere. Yet another thing that I haven't actually read. And then instituit takes conjungere as its object, and then conjungere needs to take a accusative as its object, which we find with kalamos, os, accusative plural, masculine, and then kalamos is the word for reed or a cane, so definitely related to the hibisco, but I can't write that down yet. And then we have kera. Kera is a feminine, so either nominative, which we already have with pan, so no, or ablative. Ablative makes the most sense. And this word means wax, which is kind of weird at first blush until you learn, as the green and yellow would tell you, how panpipes are made, or used to be made. You would have a whole bunch of reeds, and what they would do is they would fix them together with beeswax. Nowadays, I don't know if they do that with beeswax. I've seen some Romanians performing music, and one of them had this beautiful set of panpipes. And I didn't get a close look at it, so I don't know if they used beeswax or not, but it looked like it was bound together by a string or wire or something like that, but modern methods. Wax also works fine, I suppose, except out in the sun, which Corydon would have to deal with a lot, as would Pan. But then Pan, being a deity, would be able to summon a cloud or something. Anyway, so last word, pluris. We have that is right here, and this is what Perseus insists is an accusative plural to go with kalamos. And really, it makes the most sense. We don't need a genitive. We don't want a genitive. It makes no sense as a genitive, so accusative plural is really the only option. So then to string all this together. All right, so there is that sentence. A little bit odd in English. So you might actually want to use a different word than instituted, like he first began to join. So should probably have written that in. Or you could take this more figuratively and say he first taught men to join together. So you would, of course, start off with the one reed as just a simple flute or a simple whistle. And then Pan's the one that, according to legend, figured out how to stick them all together with beeswax so that you could have multiple notes, not noits. Noits is not a word. But there we go. So Corydon is referring to the mythical event, saying, hey, Alexis, wouldn't it be agreeable to you for just such a event to happen? And then Corydon, Vergil, goes on to explain more about Pan, our subject, kuro curare, third singular present, active, indicative. And then this takes the accusative as its object. And right off the bat, we've got a problem. Ovis, ovium, que. Que has to connect the second of two like objects. Genitive, but genitive owning magistros, with that os right there. Os has to have an accusative, which then means this os has to be an accusative. So accusative here, possibly accusative there. So then the translation, Pan has a care for, cares for, looks after. Both the sheep, we might say, except there's only one conjunction. And then for our final line of the day, nor, te, painiteat. Here we have another subjunctive in the third person singular, present tense. And this is going to take a direct object as well. So, and it means to cause to repent, to make sorry, nor may it make sorry, make you specifically, the direct object, accusative, singular, sorry. And then we want another infinitive. Kalamo doesn't work, but truisse does work as our direct object. No, not as our direct object, as the infinitive with the impersonal verb. And then with the isse, we know that we have, especially with the V right there, the perfect active infinitive. And this is from tero, terere. Oops, there's an R there. Trivui, both I's being long, and then tritum, that I also being long. So, nor may it cause you to repent. And then pruisse means to rub raw, to waste time is another option, though I don't think that's what's intended here. I suppose it could be. But then truisse needs to take an object, which we have not with kalamo, but with labellum. And labellum is a diminutive word, which is usually used to refer to the smaller of a class, or when you're talking about biological beings, the younger of a class. So then you would have baby and then little baby. It's the affectionate term. So you've got dad, daddy, papa, mommy. With the I sound, that's the diminutive in English, the affectionate diminutive in English. Labellum is as a lip. So this could refer to either the small lips, small lip, or since Alexis is a child, maybe a teenager, like Corydon, it makes sense to refer to his, in this case it'd be the lower lip, because rubbing my lower lip, you can't see, the lower lip, because it's on the lower lip that you rest the panpipes to play them. And him being a child, smaller lips, just makes sense. So, So I've added in, specifying what's meant by that, play pipes on, and then the three options for that, lower lip diminutive being the lower of the two, little lip, just for the basic meaning, child's lip, since we're talking about a child. And the last word that we have to handle is kalamo. We've got that O right there. We need an ablative of some sort, ablative of means or instrument. And this is singular. We've seen it before, and we know it's masculine. And this would be the reed, already written in right there. But of course, reed in reference to panpipes. Since he's been just talking about pan. So there we have that. I'm going to go ahead and read it through in its own context. Oh, I forgot to write that in. So much. Funny that. Oh, so much it may be agreeable to you with me, the dirty countryside, and houses of a humble one, or humble huts, to inhabit, and to pierce stags, and herd of kids to drive, with green marshmallow, with me in woods to imitate a Pan by making music. Pan, firstly, more reeds with wax, instituted the joining, or taught men to join. Pan cares for sheep and masters of sheep. Nor may it make you sorry to rub your lower lip with the reed, to play the pipes with your lower lip. Well, there's that. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you. I hope that you have a very good day. Farewell.